Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to yet another edition of the Pure Digital Passion Podcast with me, Moses Kemibaro. This is a very special and nostalgic episode. This is a recording of a reunion meeting we had yesterday afternoon here in Nairobi, Kenya, with many of the original employees of Africa Online, one of the pioneering internet service providers or ISPs in Kenya and also the rest of Africa. At its height, Africa Online, I believe, had a presence in more than 7 African countries. Was one of the largest internet service providers in the era before telecom companies like mobile networks started offering internet services. And we took really a walk down into the past, talking about what it was like to operate, to sell, to service internet services in Kenya and other parts of Africa going back over 25 years ago. In this conversation, we had a number of key people, what I like to call the OGs of the internet in Kenya, working at Africa Online, who were my colleagues at the time. And we had the likes of Geoffrey Shimanyula, who was one of the sales managers back in the day, selling predominantly corporate and internet solutions to a large number of big companies in Kenya. We had Martin Wahogo, who was one of Kenya's first website developers, responsible for building websites initially as flat pages and eventually transitioning to content management systems and the likes. Kelly Kabiru, who I actually worked with at both Africa Online and Three Mice Interactive Media, which was the first web agency back in those days that was also acquired by Africa Online at some point. And with him, we're involved in the Internet Business Solutions or IBS division of Africa Online, where we were selling websites and eventually the likes of intranets and web applications to corporates and large organizations throughout Kenya and East Africa. Then we also had David Ochanda participate in this podcast, who was a sales manager and also selling corporate internet solutions. And lastly, Patrick Malungu, who was the overall sales director for Africa Online in Kenya and across 6 other markets. In particular, Patrick was really, really instrumental in helping me hone my sales skills through intense professional training and also creating a highly sharpened and effective instrument that allowed me, as well as other sales professionals working at Africa Online at the time. So a bit of backstory here, Africa Online was started back then by Ayisi Makatiani, Amolo Ngweno, and also Karanja Gakio, who were in the US at the time, having completed their education at the prestigious universities like Harvard and Massachusetts Institute of Technology or MIT. And they decided to start a business to bring the internet to Kenya and the rest of Africa. And this was really prescient given the fact that most of Africa at that point was not even connected to the internet on a real-time or live basis. And even email required you to use a sort of archaic store and forward method of long-distance communication, where you'd actually dial up international to do so. Also at the time, they built AfricaOnline.com, which became for Africa what was Yahoo. Yahoo, of course, was one of the largest directories at the time of the internet and one of the big early startups that became, a billion-dollar business. And you can imagine, at that point, they were building this platform, AfricaOnline.com, to act as a content and news platform, allowing businesses and organizations across Africa to put their content online on websites and also generally give them visibility to the world. Africa Online was interesting because before what we now call the Silicon Savannah, they received some massive funding rounds from some of the early starting internet companies in North America like Prodigy. And the founding team really, in my opinion, were the ones that ignited the spark that started what today would call Silicon Savannah right here in Kenya. So ultimately, this is a great conversation. It's kind of informal. I did record it on my phone. And the whole point was really to keep it very authentic and very impromptu, what I like to call a gangster podcast, in the sense that it's not in a studio formal. But more importantly, this is a bunch of guys chopping it up and discussing, the early days of the internet, the highs, the lows, the humorous moments, and really reflecting on what has become today one of the most important developments in the digital transformation of Kenya, and to a large extent, a large portion of Africa as well. I hope you enjoyed. Have a great listen. Thank you. So I'm here with my good friend Shim, or Shimanyula as you know him. Shim, please tell us about the story of connecting people to those first internet connections back at Africa Online where we both worked. Karibu.
Those days, as an internet service provider, we only had a 64 kbps. 64 kbps to the internet.
But the whole organization?
The whole organization.
That was Kenstream, eh?
Yeah, it was Kenstream.
Yes.
All right. And that 64K, we had to sell another 12 64Ks before we upgraded. And I remember when we upgraded to 256, a minister came to launch. It was a big deal.
Upgrade.
It was a big deal. So, and then beyond just the connectivity, we also got into the space of web development, web hosting, and so on and so forth. So that this time we needed to go and demonstrate what our website is to a client in Kangemi.
Wait, stop.
Yes.
You had to demonstrate what our website is.
Yes, because they didn't know. Remember at that time, first of all, we are trying to sell internet. People do not know what internet is all about. So you go out there and even demo. There are times you used to go with modems to connect and then send an email, see a response before the customer can buy.
I remember that.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, that is internet. What about website? What is this thing about www? People didn't know. So we needed to go and demonstrate. Now, unfortunately, we were going to an area whose exchange was so bad. 58. 58 is around the Kangemi, Loresho area. And we are not sure we could dial in and access a website. Shocked. Do you know what we did? We had a primary web server here and a secondary web server out in the US. We carried our primary web server to the customer side.
No. Stop. So you needed to demonstrate a website.
Yes.
You went to Kangemi, the connections were poor.
Yes.
So you carried a physical server.
We carried a server. Our primary server, we carried. Which means for that time we were in Kangemi, nobody could access the primary server from Kenya. That is the only way we could show the client what a website is all about.
So you took the server from the office?
Yes.
Meaning sites were down for that time?
Sites were down. So we went, and for about 2.5 hours, nobody could access their server, their website. So we went, demonstrated. Luckily, they bought, they understood what it is you're talking about. We actually came back to the office and reconnected. That's how far we've come.
And let me get this straight. Chances are it was such a big ticket sale, it was worth taking down the other websites.
It was big money. It was big money.
So the quality of service was not a priority at that point.
And by the way, most of those websites you're talking about were largely in black and white. Because the moment you start putting color and pictures,
It used to be heavy.
it slows it down.
So it was more text-based.
Exactly. Largely text. Largely text.
Wow. Are there any other interesting memories you have from that period?
Yes, they are there.
Because we were talking about the internet, what, 25 years ago?
Yeah, 25, 26, 27.
Yeah.
Let me give you this. It is a joke and you laugh about it. There's this client who called us that the internet had been down. They called us from Karen. So we organized and sent our team. First of all, the support team tried helping them online, on the phone. Can you try this? Can you try this? It's not working. So we had to send our team. So guys went all the way to Karen. So I said, okay, madam, we are here. We are from Africa Online. What is the issue? So that I have not had internet since morning. So, okay, where's your computer? My computer is over there. So the guys sat down. They tried now to press the computer on. So, madam, can you put on the power? I said, oh, it's power that is not on.
No.
So actually, it turned out she was not accessing the internet because there's no power in her house. That's how far you've come from, guys.
I think one thing I remember from those days, Martin, maybe you also remember this. There was an assumption that if you're Africa Online or the internet service provider, that your service is extended beyond connectivity. Do you remember this?
Yes.
That in sometimes you come and find a virus or a guy has done something to his computer.
You blame
and
the service provider.
Yeah.
It is your business. You are the one who gave me this thing. Why have I been attacked?
And sometimes because of the nature of some of these people, because sometimes what would happen is this guy is the CEO of the corporate that's given you 2 or 3 lease lines.
Yes.
In his house, his wife, himself, or his kids have messed things up, and you're now fixing the computer so that it can go online, which is not the work it's supposed to do.
Precisely.
So that was a common occurrence.
But then you see, sometimes you have to step out of our way to go and assist this individual who is having other issues so that we can keep the corporate account.
At a personal level.
At a personal level.
Wow.
At a personal level.
You deal with printers because the guy's printer is not working.
No.
Yeah,
yes.
Even you used to deal with printers.
Yes, the guy needs to print the website.
The printer is not working. You call the service
the website
provider.
is yours. You're the service provider.
This thing of yours is not working.
Okay, so guys, another person now in this conversation is Martin Wahogo. Martin and I worked together 25 plus years ago.
Yes.
Building websites. You know, Martin, I want you to go back to those early days and maybe share with us something you remember that was peculiar and unique and possibly even hilarious when it came to building websites, those early days.
I think my most memorable experience was having a client who took me all the way to South Africa because they needed their website built, and because it was such a valuable product at that time.
Yes.
The guy insisted on me leaving Kenya
Physically.
physically and going to South Africa, putting me in a hotel for 2 weeks.
Wow.
Yeah.
To build it or to update it or what?
No, to build it.
So you had a 2-week assignment to build a website on the ground in South Africa.
Yeah, first time in South Africa was that because it for them the product was worth paying all that.
Right.
The product was worth all that. So I mean, and cost was not to them. I mean, this is a website.
It was a big deal.
It was a big deal. I mean, a website was a big deal in those days. You know, being able. Remember, guys, this is a 64. The whole company has a 64 link.
64 kbps.
64 kbps, and a standard photograph on your cell phone today is something like 30 MB, or if you are not using a high-end camera, is 5 Mbps.
Yes.
Now, one Mbps is 1,000 kilobytes. 1,000. So, and this was 64. That was running the Africa Online link. And Africa Online was serving the whole country.
Yes.
So all of us, all those hundreds of clients, whatever, would be sharing this is 4 kbps. So that's how far generally we've come.
So it was more efficient to get somebody on a plane, go to South Africa, do the work on the ground. Because even now, if you're doing an FTP link,
Yes.
it will be too slow.
Yeah.
It will not go through. It will go through.
Yeah.
I think for me, when I look about the young people today, the fact that you walk around with a phone, which is a supercomputer
Yes.
from 25 years ago,
That was definitely a supercomputer.
and then your internet is like this, and when it
Remember
goes between 4G and 3G, you lose your mind.
First of all, remember the computers you had then had 8 MB. Yes, it was 8 MB machine, and you walk around with your laptop bragging, "Yeah, this is an 8 MB, my friend." Right now, the smallest, I think, the least capacity you can get is what, 64 GB or whatever. It's a lot of capacity.
You know, it's so funny because last night I was also on a Twitter space that didn't work out. It was 25 years of the internet and ICT. And I was explaining on that call because, of course, they asked me to come because of my background in, Africa Online and others over the years.
Yeah.
And part of the conversation I was trying to explain to people is the issue of the point of presence.
Yes.
That I remember because I was based in Mombasa, and those days when we started in Mombasa, we used to actually dial into Nairobi
Yes.
to get
Making
email.
a trunk call.
A trunk call. And people don't even realize that today's mobile phone is one rate across the country.
Yes.
But those days, calling Nairobi was long distance, calling Kisumu was long distance. I mean, what did you guys, because you were there kind of like in the earliest days of Africa Online, right?
Yes.
What was the story or the situation between moving from things like point of presence?
Yes.
Hey, okay, guess who just walked into the room? None other than Kelly Kabiru. But there's a podcast
KK.
going on here. So
KK,
guys,
welcome.
There's Kelly Kabiru has just joined the house.
Yes.
Kelly and I also worked at Three Mice.
Yeah.
He's also part of what I'd call the Three Mice Mafia
Yes.
and the Africa Online Mafia. In fact, that's a thing we need to create, huh?
Yes.
The Mafia.
Welcome.
So,
Karibu.
Shim,
Yes.
I want you to go back into your database
Yes.
and tell us,
Yeah.
before Kelly also gives us some early day stories,
Yes.
what was going on? Point of presence, the first lease lines sold
Yes.
in Kenya. Give me that story from your perspective.
Okay. When we started rolling out internet services, first and foremost, we need to understand that it was VSAT based. We used to connect to the rest of the world via VSAT. Okay? And that VSAT was those services were being offered by KPTC.
So those who don't know, a VSAT was a satellite link,
Yes.
a very small aperture terminal. See, I remember.
Yes, it was a very small aperture terminal. All right?
Yeah.
And by default, Nairobi was the place to start because this is where most corporations were. So, given that everybody had their initial base in Nairobi, we did not have the capacity to connect Nairobi to Mombasa, Nairobi to Nakuru or to Kisumu. Okay? We did not have that.
It didn't exist.
It did not exist because Telcom had its fiber, but again, they connected those the various exchanges using radio or even visiting some places. That is why we had to set up a point of presence, otherwise known as a POP, in all the towns we needed to operate in. Secondly, the other reason why you had to set up the POP was because it made our customers then didn't have to make a trunk call. Okay? Trunk calls were very expensive.
Excuse me, sir. I can say hello.
Yes. Oh, who's this one?
Yeah. So, guys, it's a recording. So this is a podcast, man. It's a podcast. So now you got to see the guy who's coming in.
The biggest
Was the salesman, extraordinary,
boss.
none other than Patrick Malungu.
Who am I addressing?
The internet in a week or two.
right?
So
okay.
yeah,
So-
what everyone's going to talk.
So I was just explaining why we set up these POPs. Those days, if you had to make a call from one town to another, they charged you more. It was a trunk call. It was very expensive. So for us to cut that cost and make sure that customers can use our services, we had to set up POPs in the big towns so that customers then make local calls.
Unbelievable. Patrick.
Yes, sir.
You got to give us some nuggets. I remember you in my formative years in sales. And I remember you, we had gone to do a pitch at Ocean Freight,
Okay.
a shipping company in Mombasa.
I kind of remember.
And this was a man that I respected greatly, as in the CEO or the MD of Ocean Freight was running one of the largest shipping companies at the coast. And you're the only person in my life I saw make an MD quake in his chair when you were telling him, listen, you're the boss, you need to make a decision, I need you to save money sending expensive faxes and getting on email. And I want you to share with me and share with the audience here, what did it take to sell a product that people didn't even understand at the time, and more importantly, even enterprises investing significant money so that they could get rid of the fax machine. I remember you used to tell us, we're here to get rid of the fax machine.
The fax
Share
machine.
that, yeah.
The fax machine was the most difficult thing to get rid of. It was good technology, though.
Yeah.
You can't argue with
But
that.
you created a sales methodology so that we could go into sales moments and sell this unknown technology and get people to invest millions of shillings.
Whenever you're selling something to someone, you have to show them the value or the difference between what they're doing today
Yeah.
and what they're going to do tomorrow. Right? It's as simple as that. If you don't get that buy-in, you can't sell anything to them. So email was we all know email is more efficient than the fax machine. so I was actually selling something that people should have already had at that point in order to save a lot of money. Now, if you think about sending a fax machine from here today, just think about today, even today, send a fax machine from here to California. First, it costs a lot more money. Two, it takes so much longer to do so. Sometimes the ink runs out and you have to go back into the cartridges, into the warehouse and look for this and look, the paper runs out, rips. So it wasn't very easy for people who didn't know it. But once customers got the idea, it became much easier. But I marvel at what's happened today. I mean, we are on this phone.
Yeah, we're doing everything on the
We're
phone.
doing this thing on the
We got the same processing power as out of the server.
You remember the old days? You had to
Yeah.
go and plug the thing in, change it from UK to
Yeah.
do you remember those days?
I remember.
There's no cable,
Yeah, there's no
there's
cable.
internet,
Yeah.
you know,
And
you're
there
not
are
holding any mic.
And there are people on the other side. Hey, amazing.
Yeah,
We've come a long way.
Yeah, I had this experience. You know, we went to Firestone to demonstrate what internet is all about to the chief finance officer. So what we did, we went, asked for a phone line. We connected to the modem. We dialed. We connected, and you know, those days you left somebody behind, waiting for you to give them the signal. Okay, that be on standby. You will see. Well, the moment you see that email, please respond. We didn't have mobile phones, so you couldn't call them. So I did that.
You didn't have mobile phones.
We didn't have mobile phones. The guys, actually, the techies had pagers,
I remember.
and doctors, they had pagers.
Yes.
So
Wow.
what did we do? We went, we connected, all right, the internet. I sent an email. After about 3-4 minutes, my colleague responded. Then I told the CFO, excuse me, sir, it has been responded to. Email is here. You know what he asked me? So how much is this thing? I told him, sir, this thing it's only 10,000 shillings. You know what he told me? if this thing is that good, why is it so cheap? They never bought. Firestone is no longer in circulation.
Oh my God! You know, I remember we went, because I was in Mombasa at the time with Suhel and those guys, and
Yes.
we went to I think it was P&L Nedloyd, another shipping company.
Yes, PL.
And I remember the CEO sitting at the head of the boardroom, and he said, "You will never take away my fax machine." In fact, those days, the fax machine
Was in the CEO's
so
office.
strategic. It was in the
Yes.
CEO's office.
Yes.
And it was so hilarious because we'd gone there, we had pitched. I think even Patrick might have been with us. When we were pitching PNN Online in Mombasa for a very big
Yes.
email solution. And I think we were to Helen yourself, and I was trying to pitch a website. And the guy said, in no uncertain terms, this thing will never go away. This fax is forever. If I'm not wrong, almost a month to the date, he got a directive from London office telling him we're moving to email. And I remember those days, the way we used to do it was because most corporates didn't even have local area networks. Remember?
They had nothing.
Which is why I think we used to work closely with Landtech
Yes.
to go into situations so that they could deploy a local area
You
network.
do the LAN?
So that everyone would have email on their computer. Remember that?
Back then, we were selling emails to a single computer.
I remember.
That's all we were doing.
And then the corporate entities went into the store and forward.
Exactly.
Okay?
Yes.
You compose your
Yes.
emails from your workstation, then you click send. But when you send, it goes to a server.
It goes to a holding.
So the server will time, okay, it's supposed to dial at
Every
4 in the
hour,
evening.
yeah.
Yes.
Not every hour. Every hour it could not. It's too expensive.
Maybe once a day or
You know,
twice
so
a day.
maximum
Was
4
it too-
times.
really?
Maximum 4 times a day. It was too expensive.
You remember this?
Because you know, listen, because
And then dump.
yes,
Yeah.
when it connects, it's not a minute or two. It take a while to drop those emails one after the other, one after the other. When it's finished, then it picks
Yes.
what is supposed to be brought back this way. So when
Wow.
you come back the next day and you get an email, man, you celebrate
It's
about
excitement. It worked.
So now we're going to talk to one of the alumni. Africa Online, 3 Miles, Kelly Kabiru, the Kelly Kabiru, somebody I worked with. Is it now 25 years ago? Something like that,
Man,
Kelly?
you're getting old, you people.
Forever.
So Kelly, please
Forever.
give us some nuggets, some memory, something, even some hilarious nostalgia from those days.
I don't know where to start off because I found most of these guys already on board at Union Towers, I remember.
Union Towers, yeah?
Union Towers. And I think we were on the 11th floor, if I'm
Yeah.
not wrong.
Wow, you remember that?
And the guy is selling the pops on the 2nd floor. Right?
Yes.
So us guys were on the 11th floor.
Uh-huh.
And I got in there, I think the way that the office was set up, we had all the guys doing internet business on one side with the designers and, sitting on this corner.
IBS, huh?
And then we had the other guys doing the lands on the other extended side there, and I can't remember who else on the far end. So I could remember where Wenjo was sitting,
Yes.
and Paula Boao and
Oh,
Dominic
wow.
on one side, and
Oh yeah, you guys are
Katunge on this side.
click on the corner, huh?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. And I remember, I think we'd just gotten a contract from Nation to do their first ever website.
No way.
Yes.
Now this you have to share.
And I think it was the team had gotten it, and I think it was Dominic who was and Atom, I think,
No, and Kagodo.
and Kagodo,
Yes.
who were primarily responsible for populating it with content
Yeah, they were doing nation.
Day to day.
day to day.
And this was pre-content management system, yeah? So
Yes.
there was flat pages, huh?
Those were the content management. They were the Jumlas.
So it's interesting.
Manual.
So what I'm saying is even before AI came, huh? We had humans who used to do what? Things
Yes.
used to be done by computers.
These guys coded the entire site on Notepad.
So when we were looking at it, it wasn't a
Yes.
WYSIWYG, eh? It wasn't a WYSIWYG,
No,
eh?
there was nothing like
Oh
that.
my god.
No.
Oh my god.
They knew the entire code in their mind for that site. And I would remember these guys in Nation would call, I think, 4 or 5 times a day because there's something new, they need to post it. It's taking forever. The
Breaking
connection
news.
isn't working. We haven't received it. It was put up wrong. Chaos.
Wow.
But we held that contract for quite a long time.
I remember.
Sleepless nights. We would leave there at 2 o'clock in the morning because something was coming up and the connection wasn't fine, so we're waiting for it. Somebody has to run down the street, grab it, bring it back,
Come with it.
get Katunge or somebody else to put it up on design. It was crazy.
Incidentally,
Yeah?
there was a competition going on at that time. I was in Swift because that was just before I joined AFL. And then KBC, Kenya Broadcasting Corporation, was at the same time building their website. Now,
Wow.
Nation and KBC were the first database-driven websites in Kenya
With a DB in the back end.
with a database in the background. So when Anthony Kagodo and Dominic Kabinmana were struggling with the Nation one, I was a Swift struggling with the KBC one. So there was this competition between these guys, you know, on who'll sort out the first one and have it going live. Now, we didn't have Google at that time. There was no Google. So we had to share. These were competitors, but you had to share because there's something you're working on that you can't figure out how to sort it out. So, and if we didn't know here in Kenya, because we weren't many, you know, it was 3 of us. Then there was Ken Joroge, the Cellulant guy, today's Cellulant CEO and founder. Yes,
But then he was an interconnect or something before.
Yes, he was interconnect. We were few, we were about 4 of us. So we had to exchange, and if whatever we didn't know, we would have to put them on some bulletin boards, international bulletin boards, for some Russian kid somewhere who probably knows how to solve that problem, to come up with a solution, and probably working through an interpreter, you know. And so that had to be done. So these guys were struggling with the nation site, and that actually the nation site was the basis of what we call database content management systems in Kenya today. So these CMSs guys talk about, the first ever CMS was done at AFOL by those 2 guys, you know. Yeah, they were the first, because I didn't have a proper database content management system, you know, but those guys came up with one, and through that they were able now to create an engine which today is actually patented. The first Kenyan patented system, web system, which was done by Sawasawa, grew from that nation site. So they developed something where if you have a system, a database system, you use this base system to create a system for another company, you know. And because you plug in these guys, their tables are called these whatever. Now I'm going tech, yeah. But through that system for nation, the one you guys sold, what was killing you guys. I mean, you guys were having sleepless nights. I remember, you know. That system was the basis for what guys today. I mean, the Joomlas, all these CMS content systems. You know, you can even download some of these things nowadays. Yeah, but that time it was Notepad, just the basic Notepad you have on your Windows. Everything was coded there, because even WordPad came later. So you had to code everything. Yes, would spend we would spend a night. Yeah, it was crazy. I remember you would spend a whole night because there's a full stop somewhere that you've not put in your code.
In the syntax.
In the syntax, and you couldn't go home. You know, you stay there. One of my best experiences was when we were doing Safari Rally. So Safari Rally used to be at they used to have the headquarters at Intercontinental Hotel. That's where, and would carry the whole our computers, everything, plus a secondary server, just in case things go haywire, because this is Safari Rally. You know, Safari Rally couldn't.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. You know, so you'd have to go with everything, and you would not go home. So we land at the hotel, and you're not going home from the beginning to the end. And
4 days or 5 days. Or
there's no way you're going, you know, and would sleep on the carpet and whatever, you know, and sleep in turns, because
you have to keep an eye on the machine.
You have to keep an eye on the machine, and these guys are still racing, and you're putting, as you've been told by Kelly, the data is being put real time.
The human.
It was, you have to be there. And you can imagine something will go wrong, and someone would have to run from Intercontinental to Union Towers to tell them things are thick. You need to sort out.
Because you didn't have mobile phones.
No, there are no mobile phones. There are no mobile phones.
At that point in time, I remember we just started on Netscape.
Navigator.
Hey, which one? Number 2, number 3.
No, and we're using when we were fancy, we had America Online, we had the chat thing.
Yes.
Right? So we're the fanciest crew in the planet, because we could talk about things that nobody else had in the whole country.
Yes.
You know, you're speaking to your teams in Tanzania, in Ghana, and all that kind of stuff.
Secret society.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, on America Online, you know, it feels great, right? And that's before we had meaningful cell phones. We got the Ericssons later. You know, you brag about flipping it and all this kind of stuff. But before that, I mean, you'd only get to the office, and there's only way to communicate with these guys who are elsewhere that would have to be part of that clique was with AOL.
Unbelievable. I'm now
All right.
remembering that it was actually the glue that allowed us to talk to the regional guys in Swaziland,
Yes.
in Ghana. We actually used that thing a lot. sir.
Yes. And remember, the one guy we all needed very, very badly was Ayisi's bro, who was in
Chikoli.
Chikoli.
Yeah.
He was in Boston.
And another guy that we needed, especially for our team, was Randy Bush.
Randy Bush, I was just about to
Domain
Randy
names.
Bush,
For domain
domain
names.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you couldn't get Randy, you were stuck.
Imagine
There's nothing you could do.
you did all this technology on the first name basis. I mean,
No, I mean, but remember the
It's
guy
for what?
owned
Yeah.
the guy handled not just for Kenya but a number of
Africa.
namespaces.
yeah,
Africa, Middle East.
Africa, yeah.
And I remember it was so funny because he had like a text-based sheet that you would get on email, and then he would tell you, fill it exactly.
Yes.
Like this.
Yes.
Yeah, because I think he had a script or something on the server that picked up the
I
details.
think for the listeners, we need to explain what is going on here. What we're
Yeah,
discussing
yeah.
now.
Martin,
You
give
know?
it us. Give it us.
Yeah. Now, today when you want to register a domain, you go to the domain.org or you go to Kenny, they're all these whatever.
Wherever.
Yes, you just go and it's $5 or or $1 a month and then that kind of thing. Now at that time, the world, the whole earth had been divided among, I think there were 5 individuals. There were 4 or 5 individuals. For domain names. Now, yes, so Africa and I think Middle East were controlled by one guy called Randy Bush. So Randy Bush was the most powerful guy as far as
On the internet.
on the internet as far as we were concerned. So I wanted to register wahogo.com. I had to go to Randy Bush, and I couldn't go. I had to go to Africa Online. Then the Africa Online guys now would have to talk to Randy Bush. If Randy Bush was asleep, because remember the guy is in the US, too bad for you. You'd have to wait until the guy wakes up. If he's in a bad mood, you'll have to wait. If he has a cold and he can't sort you out, you'd have to wait. And Randy Bush was running this he had a notepad, or it was a text document that had all the domains. So you had to be nice, and it's not being nice like bribing or anything. No. Just talk to the guy nicely. If you are good friends, then he will put your domain as a priority. So Africa Online guys, the Kellys and Martin Yumbia, whatever, they had to talk to Randy Bush personally. So you had to sometimes prepare a whole week in advance, because there's this job we are bidding for and whatever. So you had to yes, and you had to tell the guy, and you had to make sure that either Randy Bush really likes you, or you're talking to him during the day, because as long as the guy is asleep, it didn't matter what you want to launch. You weren't going to launch at that time, But the main thing is, even just getting the domain name put in, as Moses has said, there was a form you had to fill that would then be sent over to that guy. I don't know whether you guys were using the faxes, whatever. My job was just to deal with the websites and the domains and everything. Yes, it was. It was an email attachment. Yeah, and remember we were talking about a 64K line. So Randy Bush was literally the most powerful guy for us guys in the web department. He was the most powerful guy you had to deal with. And today, I mean, at that time, I think to us he was more powerful than Henry Biwott. He was more powerful than Biwott, even the president. I mean, we weren't as worried
That
about
is the original
the
Hustler
president.
Nation.
Yes, it was definitely the whatever. Yeah, these guys were powerful, and there were certain countries, because the whole of Africa wasn't on the web. There were specific countries. There were a few countries in West Africa. South Africa was definitely there. Here, I think Uganda came online when we were there. Tanzania came much later, I think, even. Yes, Africa Online planted these seeds. These countries, Uganda, Tanzania, they used to hear about internet and wherever. So Randy Bush, I had to give the story about Randy Bush, because I think that was one of the most interesting guys I ever had to deal with. Much later on, this was now decentralized, and now he had to hand over Africa now to other people. And then now today, I think even as Kenya, we have our own guys now running our stuff here. Yes, Kenny. Yes, our own registry.
I don't know if any of you guys remember anything interesting, or you just catch a few more.
To contextualize it,
Yeah.
I think maybe you may have mentioned, but maybe you want to talk about it. this great organization we worked for that was in 7 countries or so.
Unbelievable.
And in the time that we were in Kenya, and we were, before we even grew and moved to Rahimtula,
Yes.
these products that we were selling so diligently to the whole country
Yes.
were based on a certain bandwidth capacity that was available in the country as a whole. Yeah. In the country as a whole, which is a lot less than what we have in our watches today.
Not even afford a watch. And what the watch can do.
What the watch can do.
Yes.
Okay? Because I remember even when we were doing the work that we're doing with Nation and everything,
Yeah.
the machines that we had, I think the person with the best computer sitting on their desk was Meg, because she had a Mac. Right?
Oh, and you got a new addition, none other than Ochanda. Ochanda just walked into the podcast. So the story is this: each one of you gets to share some history, some memories, something humorous, something peculiar from those 25 years ago when at Africa Online. Something that you remember that you think the audience here would love to hear. We've talked about 64K lines. We've talked about carrying servers to demo websites. We've talked about Randy Bush.
I was just talking about him today. Somewhere.
Then there's this.
Now-
This.
Yeah.
Yes.
There was the funniest thing that I've taken out of this whole thing.
Yeah.
As I sit today, is that you remember Posta? We went to Posta. I went to Posta one time and we said to them, guys, you're gonna go out of business. They looked at us and said,
Can you post the
who are these jokers? Who are these jokers talking?
The boxes were full of letters.
Thank you very much.
Bills.
Then I told them, okay, now the deal is this: we'll help you. Why don't you turn Posta into email? You remember this discussion we used to have with these guys?
Yes.
I told them, now it makes sense. You are Posta, mail, right? This is called email. Tweak what Posta to start doing this. They said, get out of here.
They didn't understand what you're saying.
Zero. They said, what are you talking about? Today, I don't have to say much.
We
The,
know
box,
exactly
the
where
boxes
they are.
were full at that particular point in time because your bank was sending you statements
Yes. Oh, yeah,
via the post office.
Yes.
And Henry
forgot about that.
Njoroge was printing, was printing the Kenya Power bills.
Look at that.
That company, what do you call it?
Printec.
The lady, the wife's company.
Uh-huh.
Oh, they used to print
They used to hire.
Kenya Power
used to,
sends you
at some
those
point
bills.
They couldn't afford those printers.
Yes.
So they give you a tender for
Yes.
the printers,
Yes.
and then you print.
Yes.
You got it.
printing as a service.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Where do you get your bank
Yeah,
statement
I've
from?
Yeah.
It's on email.
Yeah. And you can get it on demand.
Yeah, on demand, you log in and you see whatever it is
I
that you
forgot
want.
about that.
Even email, forget it comes on your phone through SMS. I don't know what they're using now.
No, but you know when the money arrives and it's gone out, you know.
You on real-time basis.
Instantly.
On real-time basis.
Remember, because phones were very expensive.
Yeah.
So even guys in the village, they generally had like one phone. So normal communication was by letters. You know, so your brother in the village is sending you a letter.
Yes.
Then the guy would write to you. You know, that's how guys were communicating. So Posta was quite busy.
Of course.
I mean,
At
they
that point in
had
time.
money.
I don't know about your village, but in my village, we had phones in 2 homes. Only 2 homes. So somebody will send someone to say, oh, Ochanda, on this day,
Yes.
on Sunday at 3 o'clock, I will call. So you go to that home and wait for your call to come through. That's how it worked. Letters were sent to the school post office. That's why every morning or every other morning, there were so many letters that were called. So and so, we go picking, then we deliver those letters. Then whoever they have sent the letters to, chances are, if the husband sending a letter to the wife who is semi-literate, okay, you have to go and read the letter for her. Okay, then interpret what is he saying. Then you will, when she replies, it's you to reply based on what she has told you.
And you write down the letter.
You write, of course, you write the letter for her, and then it will be posted.
A lot of middlemen.
That's how it used to be.
Now,
Somebody had something they wanted to say. Was that you, Patrick? Was that?
No,
Ochanda, you gotta say something.
No. This morning, we have the chairman of Kendic here. So this morning,
Yeah, hey, the big man
we
Kenny.
were at an event, and I was I met a gentleman called Barak, and
Yes.
I was telling him that.
Barak Otieno.
Yeah, so I was telling him that there's a Ugandan called Charles Musisi.
Oh, yes.
Very humble man.
Charles Musisi, of course.
To register domain name, you had a form you fill. First, it was Randy Bush in the US, and then somehow I don't know there's a connection. I don't know between Randy and how they are connected. They're friends. We had to sign a form, and Randy Bush would take 2 weeks. So later, I think it was agreed somehow that now Charles Musisi would do it, and now so Charles Musisi reduced the time, and Charles Musisi still runs the .co.ug.
It's still under him.
To this day.
He's the Oga of
He's the
.ug.
Oga. Yes, there's UC.
He's a cartel member.
UCC. What do you call it?
Yeah, UCC.org or something, yeah?
But-
.ug.
This is Africa.
Wow. Did anybody have any other nuggets here? Any memories? Anything interesting? Yes.
Yes. Remember we had this thing you're calling e-touch?
Oh, e-touch, a cyber cafe concept.
Yes. We saw an opportunity in rolling out a cyber cafe franchise,
Yes.
which we started in Kenya, but we rolled in all the countries where Africa Online had an operation. How did it work? We get somebody with a cyber cafe. We give them the connectivity. They manage and they do everything else. And we make money from every email sent, every email received, okay? And every minute they spend on the internet. We made a shitload of money from e-touch.
And that's what the post office should have been doing.
Remember, we charge to receive an email. Forget about sending.
You know, now that you mentioned e-touch, I now remember there was that partnership with Barclays. What was that thing called? There's another product, huh?
Did you have something with Barclays?
Yes, every Barclays, there were certain Barclays branches.
They're testing.
What was something? Was it e-touch?
They're trying to.
But the concept almost felt to me like what today is a co-working space. The idea was that you could come in as an SME or a small trader and you could operate from there because the internet was there.
Yeah.
And this was of course pre-mobile phone, pre-lease lines at scale, you know,
Right.
home fiber, that didn't exist. But the idea is that I think they did a partnership. I remember Ayisi was involved in that because he was also a director at Barclays then, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was.
But the idea was that you would walk into this Barclays, there'd be a section where business people could operate, like a business center, which today is what we call a co-working center. And I think that's kind of like mind-bending because I think if you think about it,
they did two. I think that
there was e-touch and another
They
one.
piloted.
they piloted. Then later,
Okay. But what I'm saying is that if you think about the experiments that were being run in Africa Online, trying things, different things,
They're happening today.
then even last night when on this Twitter space, the iBus story came out.
Yes.
Somebody's asking about iBus. Moses, you were there. What happened to iBus? Do you remember iBus?
Yes.
iBus
That
was
was
the
wireless
internet, and it was a big deal at the time because mobile phones are not yet mass market. I mean, you didn't have home internet; you had to dial. But this thing allowed you to connect wirelessly with a fixed cost,
2.4
unlimited.
That was 2.4 gig.
You know, the challenge on all those technologies was bandwidth.
Yeah, that's a constraint.
That is actually the constraint. That was the bottleneck, was the bandwidth, because then you couldn't do, not so many people could be on the thing, right? It wasn't mass market. So yeah, if you had 5 or 10 people on it,
That's it,
great.
saturated, yeah.
Now you 1,000, forget about it.
It was VSAT based, and the VSAT has constraints. There's only so much you can do.
No, but we've come a long way. But I also remember the AfricaOnline.com. Remember that?
Yes.
I remember when we were pitching websites, we'd always tell guys, now when we launch your website,
So they're sitting on somewhere else.
we're going to make sure it's linked to Africa Online. Because remember that was even
Mirror.
pre-Google,
Yes.
pre the websites you visit. But remember we told guys that, and then the clients would get excited. You're going to put my website
Yes.
on AfricaOnline.com on the
We
homepage.
were trending.
And
Yeah,
we're sending links.
We were trending, boss.
guys, I tell you this one thing that I became so embarrassed of when I became the chair of KENIC
What?
is the fact that I went to sell Kenya-airways.com.
Yes, and
Instead
you
of-
and instead of
You know, I remember I went
That
with the CEO.
That is your legacy.
I know.
Instead of Kenyaways.com.
Instead of
Remember-
Kenya-airways.co.ke.
and remember,
We said
hyphens
Kenya
in
Airways
domains are not good.
Or even KenyaAirways.com.
But you see, those days used to put hyphens. But I
know.
I
Not a
gave
good
this
thing.
story at the
It's not a
KENIC
good
Because
event.
there was a
Not.
Kenya, it ends with an A.
Yeah.
Airways begins with an A. So let's make it Kenya-airways.com. Not so
They didn't have a domain by then.
They didn't have.
No.
But you know what happened when I was at 3 months?
many domains have been registered by Africa Online, and it's
I was handling, I think, even with Kelly. Were you with me on Kenya Airways at
Yeah.
3 months?
Yeah.
And we used to talk to this guy called Nduva. Was it
Yes.
Nduva?
Yeah, Nduva.
So Nduva, we became a minister or something at some
He
point.
was,
Yeah?
yeah.
So that time he was the head of e-commerce
Yes.
at Kenya Airways. Remember, head of e-commerce.
What was
He
e-commerce
he
then?
was PS Transport in the last government.
Yeah, but at that point in time, he was the head of e-commerce
Nduva
at Kenya
Yes,
Airways.
you know him.
And what e-commerce were they doing?
At that point, I don't think it was transactive because guys used to make, you'd send an inquiry to Kenya Airways on email,
Yes.
and then they'd reserve a ticket, and then I think you'd
That's
still pay
that was
manually.
that was e-commerce.
But that, no, but it was not a full.
Yeah.
Boss,
Serious.
We were ahead of the
guys
time.
were making money.
Yeah.
Guys were making money. It wasn't transactive, but leads were coming in. Yeah. And I remember this so clearly because if I remember correctly, there was a lawyer representing Kenya Airways trying to get now KenyaAirways.com. And I think at the time, the guy who had KenyaAirways.com was demanding something like $10,000.
Oh yeah.
Which is nothing.
Which seemed like a lot of money at the time.
Look, but now, just that hyphen alone. When,
But you know the
when
problem
the
is-
web crawlers are crawling,
Yeah.
that doesn't
It
work.
kills
Well,
it,
can you
yeah.
imagine KenyaAirways.com now would just be $10,000.
But you see, the thing is, what that does is that people in the world don't know about the hyphen.
Yeah, no.
So they're typing in KenyaAirways.com.
Yes.
Number two, they
Always.
hit a landing page. On that landing page is an ad from Google that is actually going back to Kenya Airways. So they're paying for the privilege of seeing that domain bring them traffic. But the guy who gets those clicks makes money.
Is that guy?
Yeah.
But,
So we call
luckily,
it- yeah.
but luckily now, with all these web crawlers and
But you have to work
Kenya Airways is known.
Yeah, but you have to work a little bit harder.
It would
never
be
type.
it would be easier, yes,
Yeah.
if it was the
Now,
other
I
way.
mean, there's been enough
But
more.
now you can even have a website, a domain that means absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
But if they know that you are a certain company, they'll because of Google's brought this industry a long way.
Absolutely.
I mean, amazing.
And then, I just want to say, probably when I think back, Africa Online is, for me, I think there was that, I don't know what to call it, but you felt like you're working at Google today or something like that. Like, you tell guys I'm working at Africa Online, they'll be like, oh, you work at Africa Online.
It was a big deal.
It was fresh. It was new. It was a thing.
Yeah? I think even I got dates on that one. I just like, because it's like you, the human, represented the future.
I was just sharing with Martin. I'm saying, I was telling her those days, you go to Kengele's West, Nairobi West, the front parking was reserved for African Liners.
Get out of here.
Yes, nobody else will park there. You can't. The guy said, no, weka nyuma. Hapa iko wenyewe. I remember Guna had a Renault, eh?
Yes.
Yes.
With the funny
The
camera.
Renault 5, huh?
Yes, Guna's
The
Renault
Rojo.
used to be used to be at the entrance because of
Wow.
Africa Online. You go to Hard Rock Cafe,
Oh, Hard Rock.
right? The counter was reserved for Africa Online and Lantec.
Atlantic joined
Nobody
us.
else.
But that marriage was based out of need in the sense that you want to close a sale, there's no network.
It was
So these
symbiotic.
guys lay the network, you guys
Yeah.
doing the internet, right?
Yes.
You follow each other.
It was symbiotic.
And they supplied the first router, Cisco router, I think it was 9,000 something, when the one that was brought failed
Wow.
and the network needed to be up. And so I think Commander picked up and said, can you find this? They found it and probably charged hell a lot of money.
It was a leg and an arm. Eh?
Yes,
It wasn't
just
cheap.
one. And then so their eyes opened up. Allah. I mean,
You can make money with this.
Cisco
was
partnership,
what,
yeah.
$6,000 or
Yes,
something?
they're not Cisco. I don't think they're Cisco partners there.
Yeah,
They
I
figured
think
out, because they were smart
$6,000.
And
guys.
that opened a whole new
They
door.
figured out how to do it. And then they became a Cisco partner.
Wow.
Oh yeah, no.
Because they were just networking. They would just network, but they would not put in firewalls. They would not put in, stuff of
gadgets
routers.
required.
And,
just
they
cable.
would just do
They
the
put the
cable.
cabling
They would
in,
make the network intelligent.
I mean,
In fact, I remember those days, one of the most coveted positions if you're techie was CCNA. Remember CCNA?
Still, CCNA.
You announce your
now,
CCNA, people, even now, eh?
even today. Yeah.
Although now the CCIEs
CCNA.
are a step higher.
That's a professor now.
Yeah.
Compared to-
CCNE,
CCNP.
Is it CCNP?
Yeah. But the network's now becoming easier, so maybe those things. There's so many other guys. I mean, you can set up. People don't use those routers as much.
most of the
You go to open internet. There are like 15 guys in an office, which is the bulk of the SMEs in Kenya. Just as long as they have a pipe, they're in until things become All the documents on Google or on Microsoft, so what they need, and the email is there.
But
There's nothing on premise.
But if you imagine today that most of the programming, 40% of the programming is
Really
done
done.
by computers.
Yes.
So,
The
you know,
AI,
CCNA starts disappearing. All these other people start disappearing because computers can do it, you know.
We had a very interesting experience once, though this was now at Formnet. So this one night, you know, because the machines would emit a lot of power, a lot of heat. I think they still do, but that time was a lot more. So you had to have a lot of fans and all those, and ACs were not there that time. So it was basically fans. You know, ACs hadn't checked in. So this one day at about 3 a.m., power fails. The fan power in the server room, and the cables melted because now they melted.
It gets so hot.
Yes, it got so hot they melted. Now Kagodo Anthony, who was the one who was there, had gone to visit the guy at 3 a.m. The cables are melted, which means the server has gone down. Now we smelt the wires,
The rubber.
you know, the rubber, the melting. So we go there to check, and this is Formnet. Africana is not yet there. So it was Formnet and ARCC at that time. Africana now came I think a year later. And so this server here, there was only one server, was carrying literally over half of Kenya's websites, emails, all that stuff. So Anthony calls the CEO then, Alejandro, and Alejandro,
Alex, I remember, yeah.
Yes, Alex, the backup server was in his bedroom. So he used to have a backup server in his bedroom, not even in his sitting room. It used to be in his bedroom, so that if anything goes haywire, he has access to it immediately. So Alex had to carry the physical server, the backup server, to the office to come and replace that stuff. Now he had to get even the techies now, guys had to come from wherever, you know. Somehow they had these pagers. Guys used to use pagers, you know, so all tech guys had to have pagers. I mean, the mobile phones were, I think a mobile phone was like 25,000 shillings or something at that time, so you couldn't buy techies their phones. So they had pagers. So guys had to come and set up this server, because literally you're talking about half the and emails are being sent, as we said earlier. We used to have something called staging, so you couldn't send emails real time like at that time the way we do it today. So what would happen is that you'd send an email, then it would be kept somewhere to be stored. Yeah, it was a store and forward thing. So there were emails that were definitely somewhere. There was probably someone who had set their emails to come through at 3 a.m. and the server has, it has melted. Just say the cables have melted. So this was a life and death matter as far as very many organizations were concerned, because an organization will store so many emails, you know, those hundreds of emails, then wait for the other emails that were coming into their server. You know, these two operations could not take place simultaneously, you know. So that day was probably the most scariest day in my life. And the funny thing was,
You are not going to die.
I was not now the funny thing, I wasn't an employee of Formnet. So I used to go there to use the internet and learn. That's how I learned my web, because there wasn't any college. There was no college to learn web design and this web stuff. Yes, yeah, there were no cyber cafes. There was, at that time, there was no Google. There were no online.
But Yahoo was there.
It was Yahoo, but it wasn't
yes.
a search engine.
Not the search engine.
But actually, Google was there. It was just not.
Anything that
Yeah,
and
it
you
wasn't
weren't-
anything,
you weren't
yes.
paying attention to it,
Yeah.
because what were we going to do with it?
We didn't know anything about it, and so you had to learn from someone who knows. So there were like 3 guys who knew this stuff, you know. So I used to go and basically steal Formnet's resources and time. So unfortunately for me, this meltdown happened when I was there, And at 3 a.m. there was nowhere I was going, so I had to stay there.
There was no Uber.
Yes, there was no Uber. There's no Uber, whatever. And watch as these guys fix this problem. And thankfully, I'm glad because of that, Alex got to know about me. So when I finished school, they needed a new web designer because now work had increased, and so I was invited for the interview. So Anthony told him, there's this guy I know. He didn't tell him who it was. So we entered the interview room. Alex remembered me. You, young man, you're the fellow I found here in my server room. Still in my. So I had to tell the guy, yes, it was me, sir, and whatever. And so did you learn enough to make a website? Yes, sir, I have. And so he told me, okay, so what can you show me? There's a computer. So I was given a computer. That was my interview. So I had made a website, my personal website, and the interview was me showing him my website, and he gave me on a diskette. Remember at that time, the small diskettes had come in, the 3.5, because before then it was a 5.25, those very huge diskettes. So he gives me an image on a diskette, and he told me, go and change your picture there, replace it with the image that is inside here. So that's what I did. That was my interview. And by the time I was done, okay, so what are you doing right now? And I reported the next Monday, and that's how my career began.
Competence-based testing on web design.
At that time, in fact, we were saying that earlier. At that time, your CV really didn't matter. You've done. It was about what you could do. So at that time, unlike today when the HR wants to see your papers, you've done what? At that time, it was what you could do. And you had to know your stuff, and you could only know your stuff by collaborating with guys in the industry. I remember even the sales guys, you guys were selling, it was you guys and many other guys, and you'd meet somewhere and even share stories, share your dramas, and this is the latest thing in the market and that kind of stuff. That was the thing. That's what was driving the industry at that time. There weren't, I don't know were there industry secrets per se, because in my area of specialty there were no secrets. Yeah, you had to talk to Ken Jorogo, you had to talk to Dominic, you had to talk to Anthony. Even the design. I remember Photoshop, the Makumis and wherever. I think you were there, Moses. Yeah, these guys came much later.
Yeah.
And we you had to show these guys how to use Photoshop so that the guy helps you, because the work is a lot, and you need the guy to be able to produce the stuff at your level, And guys were from all manner of industries. This guy called Lucky was a civil engineer. Yeah. So he started doing stuff for us.
Actually, that was Fadi.
Oh, that's Fadi. Sorry, I'm confusing with Fadi. Yeah, not Lucky. It's Fadi. Lucky was a different. Yeah, Fadi.
Fadi was a mechanical engineer.
Yeah, he was an engineer. He was in college at UON, and he used to come to do the design as he's doing his college work, because the guy was very good at JavaScript and Flash. I mean, that guy was the best you could find. But he's an engineer, and we had to work with him. It didn't matter. This is, you needed this guy because he's a guy who knows the stuff, and I think that was happening through and through. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So
I don't know whether it's a wrap, guys. Any last words? But I think that's practically
I
1 hour.
only have a question for her.
Yes.
Madam, these things this was Zeza discussing, can you relate with them in any way? At what point did you ever dial up to get the internet?
I think for me, I discovered the internet when there was Windows 98.
Oi.
Yeah.
Windows 98.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So at least I can say I've used a diskette.
Oh.
Okay.
So I'm not that lost in this conversation.
And the first time you go to the internet, what sort of speeds are you getting?
Oh my God.
Are you talking about kbps or mbs?
No, they were kbps. It was kbps.
So still kbps.
Yeah, it was kbps. Yeah.
You have to pay for that understanding.
Yeah.
Just like you can't be doing this because
Yes,
your
it
money
is
is
really
just
slow.
counting.
Good. I think we've come from far. We have achieved a lot in this space of internet and technology, to the extent that now we take it for granted. Okay? Those days, you send an email like now, and you hope that sometime in the course of tomorrow, somebody will have replied. What used to happen is that, you see, my office is on Moi Avenue on the left side. Yours is on the right side. Our mail servers are in the US. So when I click send, it goes to my ISP, and my ISP takes that email to the US. Yours will also have to dial into US. If by any chance my email will have arrived there at the time yours is dialing, then it will bring it. But if it dials in before mine arrives, you will not get it until the next dial session. Okay?
Which could be 3 hours later.
And imagine that was a revolution.
It was a big deal.
I mean, from the fax.
It was a big deal.
It was a revolution. Now.
Okay. And remember, even the fax, we said something called e-fax,
Yes.
whereby you could send an email to a fax machine. Because there are people who are still stuck on the fax.
Yes.
No, I still need my. Yes. We don't accept email. So we had to send them an e-fax using email.
I remember Swift Global had some automated tool like this, yeah?
Product was doing very well.
It was actually sending the fax, and there's a box you put, yeah? And then it would digitize it, send it over the internet, and deliver on the other side. It was cheaper than sending direct through Kenya Post, direct international call.
Yes. I think it was a fax gateway. Somehow
Yeah,
connected.
yeah. Wow.
Good.
Hey, tumetoka mbali, guys. So that is it. I think that's a wrap. That's 1 hour of 25 years ago of the internet in Kenya.